Hello, and welcome to the Amplify Your Confidence podcast. My name is me, written as NY at www.dancewithme.com. This is a weekly podcast where I create fun, energetic, and informative conversation that helps you to amplify your confidence and live your life to the fullest. Are you ready for it? Let's go! Hello everyone, welcome to the second episode of the Amplify Your Confidence podcast. Today we're gonna talk about the key to overcome your fear with Luca Vavassori. Welcome to our podcast.
Thank you so much.
Before we going to talk about the topic today, let me introduce you to our guest speaker today. Luca Vavassori is a host, facilitator, and event manager for the Nomad Escape, a business retreat for digital nomads, remote workers, and entrepreneurs all around the world. Luca and I actually met each other on one of the events last year, right? At the Nomad Escape. And since then, we became such a good friends.
Did we?
Yeah.
Okay.
And as a public speaker, he shared his passion and experience for self-awareness and overcome fears. And, of course, entrepreneurship on different stages, such as My Valley University, the Talent Institute in the Netherlands. His background is actually in computer science, engineering, and he used to work as a data scientist and consultant for Big Four consulting company in the Netherlands. In his spare time, he dedicates himself to the EIT Digital Alumni community as event officer, where he coordinates and realization of global and local activities and events for the members of the foundation. Such an introduction, Luca. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. It seems like you know me very well. Then maybe we are good friends since you know all this about me.
Yeah. Who wrote this?
Not me, or maybe me. Okay.
Okay. So before we start to talk about the overcome fear topic today, I would like the audience to know more about you. So let's play a game. So I call it to put our guest speaker on the hot seat and then ask them quickly about 5 questions. And the idea is you don't have to think. You're gonna have to either answer just by one sentence or very quickly. Anything just come up into your mind.
Great.
Yeah, you ready?
Not ready, but let's do it.
Audience, you ready to get to know more about the guest speaker today? Okay, the first question. What confidence mean to you in 3 words?
Ooh, okay. Confidence in 3 words. Why did you start with the tougher question? So in 3 words, confidence. It means awareness. It means courage, braveness, courage, and it means I will say being comfortable with the uncomfortable. I know it's not one word, but
yeah, it's okay.
Yeah,
it's beautiful definition though. So because our podcast is Amplify Your Confidence podcast, I guess I love to ask the questions with different guest speakers to see what is their view of confidence. And of course, we're going to talk about confidence later when we mention about fear. So awareness, courage, and being comfortable with the uncomfortable.
Yeah, the hot seat was hot. Like, first question was like, whoa, okay.
But good answer, I like that.
Thank you.
Let's go with the next one. How do you rate your confidence right at this moment from 1 to 10?
Whoa, okay. I think it depends. In general, I would say I'm a good 8 or 9. So I'm getting very confident after quite some personal work and development I've been going through in the past years. Then there are some topics where I think confidence goes down to 6. I'm still confident, but not as confident. And then there are some topics in which I'm like 10 out of 10.
Wow, okay. But right at that moment, when you are going to talk about fear, you feel confident?
Never and always.
That's also a very good answer. Let's move to the next one. What are your most three important values in your life?
Wow, like you're really like picking the most introspective and important question for a person. What are my core values? The three most important core values. I will say honesty.
Mm-hmm.
I really value that a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Integrity.
Mm-hmm.
And I will say kindness in a supportive way.
Mm-hmm.
Like always be kind to the next person
Mm-hmm.
and try to support wherever you can.
Mm-hmm. Oh, beautiful. Ready for the next one? When was the last time you felt your confidence at worst?
The last time or the biggest time? Because last time I don't remember.
Okay, just whenever the first thing came into your mind.
I think last time was when the first thing that came to my mind is actually when I was still working for KPMG and I was trying to quit my job and I was definitely not confident about the future and me being able to just quit my job and survive out there.
Okay, we talk about this later, right?
Yeah, probably. You are the guidance here.
We talk about this later. How did you overcome that? So the last one.
Right, ready.
Then you can move to a normal seat. What do you often do to boost your confidence? So how you leverage your confidence? Because for me, confidence is something that you always can work on yourself to improve. It's not like one day you like, oh, I'm 10 out of 10, then you don't work on it anymore. So do you have any ways that you do to...
I think I try to rationalize because I think when we're not confident, probably we are afraid of an outcome, most likely. And then I try to rationalize over these outcomes and are things going to be that bad or not? And then once I rationalize, I always try to remember myself that we are on this planet for not a long time, probably, and maybe nobody's gonna ever remember about us and what we did. So just take it easy and take life as a fun journey and not too seriously.
So
we managed.
We managed.
The seat can cool down a bit now. Yeah, great.
Yeah. So let's move to the next part to discuss the topic today: the key to overcome your fear, our fear. Because I know you personally, and I know that you're passionate about this topic, and you became an advocate for the topic fear. Can you share with us what was the reason? And of course I already know, but let's share with the audience that the relationship that you have with fear and why fear became such an important topic that you want to talk about. Yeah,
so essentially I started to really try and understand more about fear because I'm a fearful person myself. I have a lot of fears. I was not born with them, but I then realized that I had many, such as fear of heights, fear of deep water, fear of death, most likely is the strongest one, always persistent within me. But in general, also, when I was growing up, I was sometimes confident, sometimes not, and sometimes really afraid of going for the uncertain. And I thought that this was kind of limiting my possibilities, my opportunities, my potential in life. And I tried to say, okay, is there anything I can do to improve on my fears and then tap into my full potential? And that's the moment where I started to be more interested in fears, but also in self-awareness, that I think is an important component of the overcoming fear journey. And I started to see how I was improving, if I was improving, and how I was challenging myself every day to become a less fearful person. And I think I was starting to share with the loved ones, the people closer to me, how I was doing it, and they were maybe noticing improvement in my journey, in what I was doing. And then they were inspired themselves. So once I realized that was such a touching topic, because everyone is afraid of something in life, then the fact that I can inspire someone to also get rid of some fears or overcoming them put me in a position where I said, okay, I love to speak, I love to share a message, I love to help people. Why don't I try and make it something very personal that I can really know more about and help others with?
But also I think a little bit of fear is normal. Like you said, everyone has some fear. So I remember you told me about the categories of fear, right?
Yeah.
We have different type of fear. Can you share that a little bit more?
So fears are normal because fear itself is a mechanism. It's a mechanism of defense, because every time we encounter a dangerous situation, especially before we became such a developed society, if we go back to the prehistory or whatever is the period, if you encounter a lion, you are afraid and you want to you get this mode that is called fight, flight, or freeze in some cases. Reaction is triggered by your body every time that you encounter something that might be dangerous, might be threatening you. Yes. So right now we are not exposed anymore to this. I mean, sometimes we do, but most likely we're not exposed to this kind of life or death situations, but our body cannot make a difference. And for instance, when you asked me what are the typologies of fears. So I think we have more life-threatening fears that are the one for which this mechanism should work very well, such as the fear of heights, the fear of death, the fear of deep water. Like these are more intrinsic fears that are triggered by your body because your body knows that it's gonna be physically damaged. But then there are the modern fears, what I call modern fears, that are associated with anxiety and stress. And fear of the uncertain, like everything that you don't know the outcome from, then these are the more modern fears, and they're the one that I think are the most important right now to solve, because I maybe don't know how to overcome fear of heights, but I definitely try and help people to overcome the fear of making a decision for the future, for instance.
Wow, nice. So let's talk a little bit about your personal experience or what your journey of overcome fear and learning more about fear. What was the biggest fear that you ever overcame? Maybe let's go back to the story that you mentioned about quitting the job at KPMG.
Yeah, that was definitely not my biggest fear, I have to say.
Yeah, definitely. I know your biggest fear.
So my biggest fear is still the fear of dying, fear of death. And I'm working on it, but there is no solution. One day we're all gonna die, so I'm gonna always be afraid of it. I don't want to be afraid. I think it's more being afraid of dying at a young age, or whenever I didn't achieve everything I want to do in life. But
another fear.
The main fear that maybe I overcame, that is more those kind of fear that are more intrinsic, is the fear of heights. So I think all the fears somehow are inherited, mostly from our parents, but also from traumas and situations that might happen. And for me, probably I understood later in time, later in life, that this fear of heights is from my mother. And this means two things. The first one, that it doesn't belong to me. So the second thing, it means I can get rid of it, or I can rationalize it and say this is not part of me. I can put it aside. It's gonna be there, but I can put it aside. So I used to freeze, paralyze every time I was in a very high spot or looking down to a cliff. And then I decided that, well, I love to look at panoramas and landscapes and so on, and being on a cliff is cool, and hiking is cool, and going up to mountains is cool. So I wanted to overcome this, and I just decided every day to do one step closer to a cliff, one step closer to anything that would put me in that situation, listen to my emotions, feeling what is going on in my body, and then understand that it's just a feeling, let it go, and then keep going. And 1 year after this journey, I was actually in a levada that is in Madeira, a hike trail. And I remember I completely froze, paralyzed there, while I was walking on an unprotected part of the trail. And 1 year later, I was passing by and I asked my friends, let's go for this hike. Like, it just 15 minutes to reach that point. And I just went to that point. I was just looking down the cliff and I didn't feel much. And I was like, okay, let's do jumping jacks. So I was just like jumping jacking on the cliff, and I was like, great. This was a very nice way to evaluate where I was standing now after all this trial of being uncomfortable with the comfort. Because in the end, fear is about uncomfortable sensations in your body. And I just trained myself to be okay with these like butterflies in my guts or getting dizzy when I was looking down and so on.
Yeah, I remember last year when we was in Madeira and then we went for a hike.
Yeah.
And I was scared. And then you're like, no, come on me, let's go. I'm even more scared than you and I could do it. Why you didn't dare to do it? And then we both did it together. So that was your biggest fear.
That was my biggest fear. Then if you want to know more about my job, it's another thing.
Because I feel like the job also very relevant to the listeners as well. I'm sure a lot of them listen to this podcast that at least once, maybe they like, oh, I want to quit my job, go on travel for a year. Oh, I want to quit my job to build my business. I want to quit my job just because I'm just so tired of working and I just want to take a year off to invest on myself. And of course, the feeling of losing your job and the stability is scary.
Yes, definitely scary. Especially the stability part and especially the uncertainty of what am I going to do afterwards. And disclaimer, we are right now living a phenomena that is called the Great Resignation. Someone coined this term. And it started to happen exactly when the pandemic started to hit and people experienced remote working or work from home. And they realized, oh, I don't want to be in an office anymore, or hey, I can actually travel and work from here and work from there. Or because of all this depression and weird situation in which we found ourselves, humanity was just like thrown in this chaotic mess. People started to maybe get more into spirituality, listen more to what they really want. And these make them realize maybe I'm not aligning anymore with the values of my job, my companies, or it's not making me happy. Life is short. I have to make the most. And it kind of hit me as well. I mean, in the end, I can't lie. I was like, maybe I don't like my job as much as I thought. Maybe the company is not aligning anymore to my values. It's more towards profit instead of making an impact on this world. That is something I really care about. And I think you have to really think through the decision of quitting your job, because I did it. I had some money aside, some savings that would allow me to survive for some time without making any income, and kind of had an idea. I didn't really have an idea, but I kind of had a direction of what I was going to do. Just don't jump straight into quitting your job if you didn't thought through very well about what's gonna happen later. This said, if you feel like quitting your job is the best for you, I really support this, because now after, I think, almost 2 years, 1 year and a half, almost 2 years, I can be happier because I really found more of my people, such as me. I found more of my passions, understood more what I like, what I don't like. And has been anyway a process that started 5 months before quitting my job. Like I experienced depression, I experienced demotivation. I was definitely not a pleasant person to be around, I think, for some time because of all this combined. And then I first asked for remote work. I got remote work. I realized I loved it. Then I met the Nomad Escape, and I realized that I could have just give it a try because, as I said, for some time I was able to survive on savings, and then sometimes
you make your way.
Yeah, sometimes I really believe that when you resonate with the right energy, or you emit, like you are sending the right energy out in the world is answering back, mirroring the same kind of energy. So if you're positive, I was negative, I was depressed, I was into a very bad spiral in my job, and I was getting this back from my job. Then I realized I had to be more positive. I found the things that made me positively polarized energy wise, and the world started to polarize in my same way, and the way kind of showed itself. And so when you think about confidence, that the only thing I'm always confident about is I'm gonna figure it out. Like, I don't know how, I don't know where, I don't know why. I just know that if I have to figure it out, I will figure it out. That's my whole confidence. And this is kind of the main confidence you have to have, because once you are confident about uncertainty periods being okay, then all the rest can just fall down and you're gonna still stand.
Maybe Luca's gonna become the host instead
I don't
of
know.
me.
I don't.
But I really love the way how you say it. Confidence means you have the ability to figure it out when things come to your way, either bad or good. You have your own responsibilities to do it. And just to summarize the whole thing that you just said about quitting the job.
A lot, sorry.
No, don't worry. We love story here. But just for the audience to remember everything that you just said, I think for anyone who plan to quit the job, they should think through a bit. It's good to have an amount of money that they save. And then they don't have to figure out every step in the futures. But for, let's say, they should have an idea.
I will say they should have a direction.
A direction to go. That's it. Yeah.
The first step, what are you going to do first as soon as you quit your job? Because if you just quit with no idea, you might find yourself lost, and then you cannot get out of this vicious circle of, okay, what do I do? Or I'm not able to do anything else. I'm not confident. I cannot do it. I'm not worthy. What I do? And then it's just like a spiral. And if you don't have savings, but you already started a side hustle, that is also a very good way to try and do something that you're really passionate about. On the side of your job, start something that really makes you happy and try to make this your main occupation with time. It's gonna take time. It's not gonna happen from one day to another, but it's another very smart way to go more towards the direction you want to take.
Yeah. And I think another thing, the last thing would be you have an environment, people around that align with you. That
people are key. Like, environment is one of the most important things ever, coming from your personal life, your relationship life, romantic life, and especially for growth and productivity as well. Like, you always kind of have to create the right environment that is gonna stimulate you in the right way. And you are the average of the 5 people you surround yourself with. So surround yourself with 5 great people, especially maybe the kind of people that you would like to become as well, so that you can learn way faster from them.
Totally agree with that. That's why I think the 3 first persons in this podcast all come from the Nomad Escape. They are my people, of course.
Yay, and you are our people.
I have the next questions for you. What are the most valuable lessons on this journey when you learned a lot about fear and how to overcome it, figure it out your way? What are the most valuable lessons? Okay,
I'm gonna try to give 2 or 3 quick ones.
Like bullet points.
So you cannot be fearless. You have to live with your fears, and I love to say you have to dance with your fears.
Yes.
And he is a dancer, so perfect. So dance with your fears. You cannot be fearless, but you have to learn how to cope with them, because they're gonna be there. The second lesson, I will say that you have to put the work in. You have to be comfortable with the uncomfortable, meaning that every day you should train yourself to be in an uncomfortable situation and just listen to your body and be okay with it. That is kind of reconnecting to what I said in the first point, but it's really like put in the work, because it's not gonna just happen.
Yeah.
And challenge yourself.
Yeah.
Challenge yourself always. And maybe a third point that I will say is try to understand where your fear comes from, because as I said before, most likely you inherited that, or it was due to a trauma. If you understand the root cause, could be easier for you to understand how to overcome it. So just try to rationalize your fear and assign a root cause to it, and maybe you will get over it faster.
Yeah. And by understand the root of your fear, you have exactly the way how to figure it out, because either you need a therapist, you need different kind of ways, more come from, I don't know, external help for yourself, so you can work it out.
Yeah, and maybe then the fourth point would be like really seek help. If you realize, I'm one person that really like to put the work in by myself, because I'm also interested about the process I go through and learn how I can do it. But if you notice you can do it yourself, not be ashamed or afraid of asking for help. Rather, your closest friends first, but then really professional help, like psychologists or psychiatrists, because they are there to help, and there is nothing bad about going to a psychologist.
Yeah, definitely. So almost the last question. I would like you to tell the audience a little bit more, like the step-by-step, more practical things that you have done for yourself, because one of my goals of this podcast is that I would love audience, after they listen to one of my podcasts, every time they listen to it, they can take one small actions after the podcast, either to work on their fear or work on their, let's say, to make their ideas happen, all of that kind of thing. So right now, if anyone listen to this podcast and they have some kind of fears and they want to take the first step, then you can share those steps with us.
Yeah, sure. So if you want to overcome your fears and become more confident, definitely I will say every time you feel something, you feel, like your guts being not okay, like you're panicking, you're holding back from something, you just retreat to a distraction like Netflix or Instagram or whatever. Realize it first, be aware of that moment, and try to understand why you just did it. This is the first thing. Once you are aware, then you can tackle the problem. Awareness is the first step towards a solution.
I love this quote from Luca.
I always say to everyone. So once you're aware, understand why did it happen. So rationalize over your fear. Literally take a piece of paper and maybe just put down, what do you think is causing this right now? And then once you understand what's causing it, try to, especially when you want to do something, when you want to achieve something, there is an exercise that is called the fear setting, and maybe it's long to explain. Me could maybe include it in the description. I could share a link with her. But essentially what it does is try to figure out what are the worst case scenarios if you try or attempt something, and understand how can you prevent or fix the worst case scenarios in case they happen, but also not just focus on the negative side, but focus on the positive side. If you just try to do something, is there anything good you're gonna get out of it, even if you don't fully succeed? So, I don't know, I want to quit my job. Yes, maybe I'm gonna be broke, I'm not gonna succeed, but maybe I'm gonna learn so much things, I'm gonna meet so incredible people that is...
For example, me.
Exactly, that is more worthy to give it a chance instead of not giving a chance. And normally change is a good thing, even though we're very comfortable with our status. And last things, try to understand, if you don't do anything, if you go for inaction instead of action, how are you gonna be in 6 months from now, in 1 year from now, in 3 years from now? Because once I did it, according to quitting my job, I was like, okay, in 6 months from now, I'm gonna be super stressed. Probably I'm gonna be lacking a lot of sleep. This is not going to be good for my health, good for my relationship. Probably my ex-girlfriend at the time is going to break up with me, and I'm not going to be a nice person to spend time with. So my friends are going to be like, bro, wake up, and or not inviting me out anymore. So think of all these things together, step by step, and then most likely you're gonna see that it's not that bad to go for something.
Okay, so I'm gonna summarize this as well.
Go for it.
It's good for me to give a good instruction for the listener. The first thing is awareness. Awareness is the first thing for any solution, right?
First step towards a solution.
Yeah,
Yes.
first step towards solution. The second thing is to I forget.
So awareness, definition, and then worst case scenarios.
Yeah, I love this step, like the worst case scenario. Like, think of the worst case that can happen if you do this thing.
Yeah. And
Are
then,
you going to die or not?
No. If you don't die, it's all fine.
Yeah, then most of the time I did. Well, few months ago we talked about it, and then we actually talk about those steps. And whenever now I face my fear, actually I always ask myself that question: what is the worst thing can happen? Sometimes you're scared to ask a guy out, for example. Let's just say like that. And then I ask myself like, what is the worst scenario?
Yeah, exactly.
He rejected me, right?
Yeah, great.
Yeah,
There's the next
great.
guy next door, right?
Yes, that's it. And then the last one, I also love the next one is negative and positive.
Yeah,
for that.
Worst case scenarios, and if you can avoid them or like fix them in case they happen, then what are the good things, the positive things, benefits you get out of it?
Yeah.
And finally, what happens if you don't do anything?
Yeah,
You know,
that
if you
also
do nothing.
that also like kind of like awakening point.
Yeah, that's
when
the
you don't do
awakening.
anything, then you see it. You're gonna become either worst version of yourself, and then from that moment when you realize all of those things, and put it in your notebook, please. I think writing down your fear and actually rationalize all of this by writing it down really keep your brain works in different way.
Yeah, there is a magical connection from your brain to the pen. Every time that a word touches the paper, it's really like energy flowing.
Yeah, and then you're gonna figure out how to overcome your fear.
Yeah.
First, face it, and we wish you to overcome it by using these steps from Luca. Okay, now we're coming to the last questions already.
Oh my God,
already. So I have the last question. What would be the last thing you tell anyone now listening to this podcast and having fear stopping him or herself from doing something that they love or want for so long? What would be the last thing that you can tell?
Be afraid is good. Be okay, be afraid is also good. Be okay, don't do anything to overcome your fears is definitely not good, because I think it limits you. It puts you very far from your full potential. So it's very cliche, but life is really short. Like, the more you live, the more you understand life is short, and there is just very, very few things that are not worth to try. And we should like live in a society where there is more approval for people just trying to do things. So don't be afraid, just try, and then there is always a chance to start all over back again from the beginning.
Yeah, and from doing it, definitely you're gonna amplify your confidence.
100%.
Yeah, thank you so much, Luca.
Thank you for having me.
I hope for all of you listening to this conversation, you can take a few key learnings from it and working on the fears that you are facing now. And one day, slowly, you're gonna make a progress to overcome the fear. And definitely, I'm sure that you're gonna be very happy with that. Give yourself a big smile, and yeah. And if you want to know more and talk more about Luca, where the audience can find you, Luca?
Definitely on Instagram. My handle is Vavassori Luca, so my surname and my name. You can find me on LinkedIn too, and I think that's the main channel. And soon I'm gonna also launch a podcast, a newsletter, and more is to come. So just check out me channels, and you're gonna see definitely more.
Yeah, and connect with him if you want to also become a digital nomad and want to improve yourself, because that's the topic that he loves to talk about and have a lot of insight to share to you. For now, I'm gonna say goodbye to all of you, and I'm gonna see you at the next episode. Don't forget to rate my podcast, because if you rate it, more people are gonna find my podcast as well. And yes, thank you so much for tuning in again with us. And I'm gonna see you next time.
Yay!
Bye bye.
Ciao.
Yeah.